Good afternoon, everyone. In terms of timing, I think may not be the best time. Just we are coming in between your lunch and yourself. So we'll try and make it short and sweet. I think one of our panelists could not get introduced. Maybe if you can just go ahead.
Hi, guys, I'm Suyash. I head the technology for a D2C brand called VIRGIO. We're striving to build a circular fashion brand in India.
Thank you. How many of you believe today AI is a hot topic? Yeah, AI is a hot topic. How many of you also believe that fashion is something that where things are changing on an ongoing basis? Very difficult to predict. Yeah. So we are in an industry which is constantly changing. And the question here is, we are hearing a lot about AI. I think we have a fantastic set of panelists, very diverse, right from jewelry to fashion, and across also functions, right? We have founders represented here. We have large platforms like Amazon here, vertical brands, youthful brands, and all of that, right? I think the kind of insights that you're going to see. And what we are going to do is we're going to share as much as possible on what we are doing rather than anything theoretical, so that at the end of the day that you have something to take away. So I just want to get the panel started. Please answer in whichever sequence you like. The idea is to win the consumer, right? Win the consumer using technology in an industry which is constantly changing. The question is, what are you doing in your space to understand the consumer on an ongoing basis, to come out with propositions which have high probability of winning?
So I think as how India is growing, organized retail is also growing in tier 2, 3, 4, probably 5, tier 5, if that exists. And the needs of each and every area, region, city is very, very different. I think there were times when brands could easily believe what they thought was a brand Bible, which they would follow, convert them into products, and eventually sent it across the country. I think it's become more and more difficult to please customers. Customer demands are changing. The same set of products are not there in their wardrobes for as long as they used to. That also means that retailers are left with a lot of inventory, as simple as that. And whether it's AI, whether it's any technology-aided design, I think the biggest cost for any brand is inventory and the leftover inventory. And of course, coupled with the extra discount that you're supposed to give to liquidate that inventory. I think that at Bestseller, we are following something, to answer your question, at Bestseller, we are following something which is technology-aided. We call it the simple sandbox approach, where we are seeing trends, whether they are fashion trends or whether they are attribute-led trends, either of that, or they're fit-led trends, any of that. We create a small capsule, despite being available at 700 points of sale, let's say an example like a Jack & Jones as a brand, we create only 200 pieces. Now, I'll not delve deeper into what is our usual multiplier, but we forget what the cost is. Does not matter. So the same garment that was ideally costing me 400 rupees might cost me 1500 rupees when I'm making 200 pieces of it. But I go ahead with it. I test market with where that information is coming from. If it's Hyderabad-led information, I send most of my merchandise to Hyderabad and rest to any such close city. And if it works, we do a multiplier effect. Let's say 5x or 10x of that, and then try it out in the rest of the country. If that also works, then it's a far larger multiplier. Then we are talking about a 10, 20,000 pieces order straight away. So to cut the long story short, I think this is something that has immensely worked for us. To an extent, the number of options that are there in our stores, let's say we do around 1,000 options in a season, we've started to do only 300 permanent options. And we have started to do around 2,000, 2,200 sandbox approach-led options, which eventually become part of the main line.
It's amazing. I think if you've been in the industry for a while, I'm hearing this for maybe the first time at this scale, right? That to large companies with multiple brands now being so agile and nimble. For what you're hearing is now what's happening. It's not theory anymore. It's not a Zara case study. It's all India case studies happening at scale.
Yeah. So where we at Giva essentially use technology or AI is in multiple elements. So if I only talk about the online offline space, then right from the time of identification of a store, where the usual process of store identification, where a BD person goes, does the recce of nearby market. We also use some of the data providers who have the catchment data in terms of what is the income profile of people that are living in that catchment, what all brands are there, what all food brands are there, what's the average bill that people generate, and which then we correlate that with, okay, we have a store in Pune with similar catchment, and that store does, let's say, 15 lakh sales, so this store will do 12. So this helps us in predicting our store location in a much more refined way. That is one where technology can be used. Along with that, I think the major area where a technology can be used in is in improving the experience of a customer, right? So where when you have so many stores, like for us, we right now have 100 stores. Now, in order to provide seamless or unified experience to a customer that the customer gets online, we leverage a lot of technology. For example, all the camera feeds that are there, right, are used in analyzing whether the store staff is attending a customer or not. Because that we have realized is a major area. If a store staff goes and talks to a customer, there's automatically a bill generation that is happening. So that is one area where a lot of technology tools are used in identifying hotspot, identifying the time for which the store staff was there at the store, attending the customer or not, etc. And along with that, when a customer enters the store, so like for example, we have built our own POS system where we try, when a customer enters the stores and gives their phone number, we try and provide the store staff with the data of the customer, that what all products was he browsing from the Giva channels online, what all products has he purchased offline in other stores, so that at least the personalization of that store staff with the customer sets in. Right? Earlier in retail, you hear that a store staff has a relation with the customer along with the brand. But when you can use technology, etc., for some of those initiatives, we have started seeing that it is now, every store staff is able to relate with the customer if they're using it properly, right? So these are some of the touch points along with the merchandising. That is the biggest, right? Because for us, we have more than 4 lakh people who come to our website and app on a daily basis. So when we are deciding the assortment for the store, the online catchment becomes much more relevant, right? What all products were people browsing online, what all products were people purchasing online, and then leveraging the catchment of a nearby store helps in defining the assortment. In fact, defining where should a new product goes, etc. That is again another lever where AI or technology, I would say, can help in retail perspective.
Amazing, Ishan. Now, you saw case studies right now. You saw fashion apparel happening. Now, you saw this in jewelry. Now, silver jewelry. And we are now talking about not just product decisions. We are talking about how do you select the store. And use the omni-channel information to feed to the offline store and say that how can they service the customer. Right now, it's 360 degree, which is happening. It's not one channel anymore. Consumer seems to be at the center.
Yeah, quite interesting. I have been a firm believer of the collaboration between human and AI, and have been using it extensively for the past 4 or 5 years. I work for Amazon. There are two kinds of trends for me, which I focus on, at least for the last 5 years, which is one is the real-time ones, which is here and now, which is already starting to pick up, and there is a potential to build upon that. For which I get a lot of inputs from couple of external tools which we use, AI-led tools. One of them is Stylumia. Then we have another external tool, which is HNext, which provides me input on real-time trends, what's happening now and what has a potential to be built up in future, which is more like a white space. Another input which comes through AI for me And we do use this again extensively. It's an internal tool which throws input on customer pain points, which is where the customers are facing challenge, not just in our own products, but could be any other brands also. For example, for about 1 lakh products sold, for example, I take a denim or a trouser, you'll roughly have about 1% customer reviews, 10% ratings and 1% customer reviews, which means like you'll have probably 1,000 reviews for 1 lakh of products sold. Now, it's difficult. AI, what it does basically, there's nothing AI can do which humans can't do actually, there's nothing. The only thing it does is basically reduces the time span of doing that task. So if I have to run through 1,000 reviews and evaluate a direction, it will be massively time consuming. So within a fraction of a second, it throws input on what is the real problem. See, identifying all those, evaluating all those 1,000 reviews, and I get the input in a short duration of time. Post that, it is upon me or the team who's developing the product to how to solve that problem of the customer. And this is where it had been extensively useful for me in solving customer problems through AI, of course, by reducing the time span needed for that.
Great. I think customer reviews is something that you heard for the first time, which is to say that how can we ensure that all the text, whatever customers, real word of mouth, which they are sharing with us, that's a, cull some insights from there and use that in decision making. And also you heard from Partha, it's about the speed. How does it help you take decision much faster? Because in this business, time is essence. Right now, I'll just talk about something on time very soon. For that, can we hear from VIRGIO what you guys are up to?
Sure. I think application of technology and particularly AI can be done effectively across every leg of the fashion ecosystem. It starts before designing process, which is around trend forecasting, identify what is really working, what is not working, then goes till the design process, and post that, let's say production, and then the consumer-facing leg. We have seen consumer-facing side of the world. A lot of work has been already done by biggies of the country, Flipkart, Mintras, in terms of personalization, recommendation based on the first-party data. I think now our focus predominantly has been the first two legs, which is how do we identify trends, how do you identify what are the colors of the season, what are the silhouettes that are going to work. And there are a lot of sources of data, sales data, social data, and of course, geography specific and demographics that you are trying to target. Second and most, and there are a lot of, your company is one of the solution provider there. The second leg in fashion ecosystem is how do you optimize the entire design process cycle? When we are talking about scale, the number of variation, the number of silhouettes, number of prints, etc., the need for that has increased manifold. So AI helps us cater to that scale of design requirement with the nimble team. So there are multiple tools that we are using, which sort of enables a small team of designers to churn out, let's say, hundreds of designs in a matter of days. So we are heavily banking on that. Essentially, human touch, of course, comes. Post that, which is around the one holy grail question that everybody in the fashion world has is, once something is designed, will it sell or not? And if it'll sell, how much to produce in the first batch? And everybody would want to build a test and scale model, but we all know there are challenges around turnaround time for test and scale model. So we have been able to implement a lot of solutions, which is helping us do the design iterations much faster. And as a result, 4 months back, the amount of design iterations we were able to do it, we are now able to do multifold of that. That is essentially helping us offer more variations to the consumers. There are much more application of it that we'll keep talking about it.
Wonderful. Now, what used to happen in the real world on experiments, it's happening in the lab right now. For technology is able to simulate real world and give a lot of indications, in the process that you save a lot of time. Anshika, you were talking about, what all you do. You come from buying and merchandising, worked with various companies, and, what kind of new signals today you are using, maybe 5 years back you would not have.
So to follow up on where we started, I think consumer behavior, first you need to understand who your target audience is before holistically saying that this would work for you, should work for me as well. So when we do an analysis, like our major audience is either Gen Z or late millennials, right? So over there, we understand that the patterns are changing. Like it has already been mentioned, the trends are moving faster and multifold in terms of the pace that is there. Generation gap is also reducing, so we know the trends are moving fast. So how do we cope up with it is through AI, etc. is first to actually understand where our user is. Like for an example, Gen Z is using many more apps than millennials, although millennials are still using more digital time, but the number of apps are higher for Gen Z. So you need to understand where they are. From there, you need to pick the relevant data. So right now, like we were discussing, I'm working on building a sub-brand where we're using data to define the trends, which was not in the past. Past, it was majorly design research-led. Now it is design research married with data. So I would say 70% data and 30% is the hunch to know if the trend's going to stay or not. You understand the life cycle of the fashion in the past, like to understand if denim is going to, let's say a loose fit is going to stay for 4 years, 5 years as per the past data. You see that. And definitely your starting point, once you've analyzed where your TG is, what they are doing, what are they aspiring for, then you understand the data from, let's say, Google Analytics. You also have platforms like Flipkart, Amazon, where you can understand data. So you collect all that data, take out the data that you need for your target audience, and build a range. So essentially, we've done that. I was also looking at, like for right now, oversized t-shirt is very common in the market. However, I saw, when you see a Google trend, I saw that the jump between 2021, 22, 23, and 4 are multifold. For an example, April 2022, roughly there were about 13 lakh users who were searching for oversized t-shirts. In 23, that moved to 30 lakh. But at the same time, because we were able to see that data early in trend, we were able to capture the market big, and where these trends on Google were, let's say, moving 2.5x, our business in this category was growing 5x. So having the right data at the right time, one, you can upcharge for that because you're the trend setter, so you can make more money, you can make more profit. Also at the same time, you can take a bigger market share. So that's a successful story that we have had, which is one of the bread and butter for us right now, t-shirts. But also lately, we've also seen other successes, like for an example, cargos had launched or parachute pants had launched. Now if you go to Flipkart, Amazon, you can easily find them for like 700, 800 or 900, right? We launched it at, let's say, a 1700, and they sold very well. So most important is to use the data at the right time for your target audience and ensure that you're the trendsetter. Obviously, you can follow through, no doubt, but you can make more brand value and money if you are the trendsetter using the data.
Amazing. Now you saw a marriage between human and data. I think she used largely there. I think using a lot of data and human judgment can make you a lot of money. We just heard that the trend, the search trends of that particular oversized t-shirt went up by 2.5x and they grew by 5x. Why would they grow 5x when the search trends were 2.5x? Anybody in the audience? The difference is they saw it earlier than the market, in the sense that whatever that latent demand was available, they were able to capture, which means that you can actually grow in a market where demand is shrinking, right? And if you just ask right now, I think demand is shrinking. For in this shrinking demand, you can transfer demand. You can grow by demand transfer, which means that if you use data like this, your growth can be much higher than anybody else's growth in the industry. For it's a competitive advantage, right? It's not about nice to do, it's delivering bottom line and top line for the business, and I think that's amazing. Before I move on to the next question, I just wanted to make a small announcement. that we want to encourage some questions toward the end of the session, right after another maybe 2 more questions. And small incentive, anybody asks a question is going to get a freebie. And that freebie is a very sustainable stuff and you don't want to miss it, right? And we are going to limit that to maximum 4. Okay, for 4 questions, get ready. The next one is, in the fashion business, what happens is we always talk about what changes. This is outside the book, right? This is not something I've shared with the panelists, where we always ask, what is going to change? What is moving up? What is moving down? There is an interesting book that I was reading, and this is also Jeff Bezos' philosophy is to say, always ask what will not change in the next 10 years. Right? While you always ask that question of what has changed what is changing, asking this question, there's a book called Same as Ever. You can note this down, read this book, because if you build your business on what doesn't change, you're going to build lasting value, right? In fact, the author talks about some 20-odd things which has never changed, not changing, will not change forever. So I'm going to ask the panelists, while we've been talking about lots of stuff changing, what are the fundamentals which has not changed in the past for you, not changing now, will not change in the future, and you strongly believe in?
I think in the fashion world, fit, finish, and fabric, that's not going to change. This has been there. So no matter what you do, you may offer cutting edge trends, you may as a brand and variations. But at the end of it, how is the fit, finish, and feel of the fabric? That's not going to change ever.
Awesome. Anything else?
So I also, along with this, I also believe that the focus on consumer experience improvement, like the North Star metric that usually people tell, that is something which will remain even over the next few years. How do you keep on improving, or how do you keep on building on that? That is something which is permanent. Like that element, because ultimately the way retail, the store staff talks to the consumer, that will remain. How you elevate that experience will probably change, but the interaction of store staff with the consumer and the entire consumer experience is something which is permanent, right? Which will always be a focus.
Wonderful.
I think what has not changed and what will not change for me is that euphoria of buying a new product and that feeling of looking good and feeling happy and euphoric about buying something that really you love. I think that as a process, or that as a part, will never change.
Very nice.
Coming from a product background, I think one thing which will never ever change is, from a customer's perspective, is the price-value equation. The quality of product which is being offered to the customer at a particular price, that expectation will always be high quality product at an affordable price for the large part of customer segment.
I think consumer psychology and personalization has been there, even though the levels have gone up or down. But consumer psychology at the very core remains the same. Like you said, freebies, right? So when you do sales, keeping that in mind, that at any point in time, however expensive or cheap the product is, playing with that mindset and understanding how to, let's say, delicately sell off and be able to upsell. So I think that psychology is pretty amazing. I'll give you an instance if it's very vague. For an example, you can sell a product at 50% off. You can also sell the same product at buy one, get one. It's purely playing with customer psychology. At the end of the day, the selling price is the same, just the way that you communicate. So I think that's going to stay for sure. And product quality has already been mentioned. And personalization, definitely, yet again, why we feel that humans can't be replaced in offline stores is because of the personalization that people feel over there, right? Another reason why Myntra has been doing well, because they've always focused on machine learning, personalization, etc. So I think that's also going to stay. Just the levels are supposed to and should be going up and up.
Wonderful. I think, if at all you are taking anything from this, is not the AI bit of it. all this conversation, because this will not change, because this is a timeless value. Next year we sit here, they will say the same thing, right? So if you can hinge on these areas and say, how can I use AI, for example, to deliver more value, which will always remain? How can I use AI for customer experience, like Ishin said? How can I use AI for ensuring that I have the right fabric cut and all of that? And we talked about newness. In this business, if you don't have newness and freshness, and that whole feeling of looking good is not going to come in. And plus, use the consumer psychology all the time and understand and ensure that you use that in personalization way. That leads me to talk about this, right? I was in Surat last week talking to an entrepreneur, and he said something which was, I would say, common sense, but was shocking, which is to say, Ganesh, we use a lot of trend reports. How many of you have used trend forecast reports here in your business in some form, heard about it, right? Now he said, one of the large, most commonly used trend forecasting company gave us a report. In 2022, we saw purple is in high demand, in the sense purple is in trend. We made purple, did not work. In 23, he still made purple, did not work. Right now, I'm seeing purple coming up. Now, I think it's important for us to understand this. And this is a this is a seller who is actually making Indian wear garments, saris, kurtas, and all of that. Now, these long-range forecasts, without that personalization and for your context, it's of no use. For the old way of forecast to say, the world will love purple, will it work? This entrepreneur lost a lot of money with that forecast. Not money, everything. Which means what? For him, purple has not. I'm sure if I ask for some brands, maybe purple worked. Can you pull off a trend is very contextual for your brand, for your TG. For hence, I think the world is moving into always on dynamic way of understanding customers. Do not take big bets on static reports. Right? The world is changing. I just wanted to give you that context. In that context and that complexity, how are you bringing agility in your business? If some of you can talk about changing customer needs and what are you doing to ensure that you are agile?
So one way by which we try and bring agility in our business is by constant monitoring of NPS. So like there is a net promoter score which is used in online and offline also. And we do track it very religiously. Immediately 7 days after customer receives the product, then 30 days after customer receives the product. And those meetings and discussions are actually taken very seriously with the POC of each and every vertical of the company, right? And those becomes some of the very major areas for us to see that what are the things that we are not doing right. So that is one vertical. Second is the customer drop-off, right? So when someone is coming to the store but not purchasing, someone is coming online but not purchasing, becomes the another touch point. So we have a separate team who calls those customers and check, why did they not purchase? What was it that was missing? What are the brands that they look for? Why do they look for that brand, etc.? So those are also some of the areas where, we try and get some of the insights about what are the new things or what are some things which are missing in us. And then post that, it is all about execution, right? So post that, it is all about how fast you and your teams are driving things, how agile are they in implementing it much, much faster. So yeah, but those are some of the signal areas from where we try and collect consumer feedback very, very fast.
Ishan, you touched upon a very important point, right? It's normally easy to track who purchased. Yeah. It's difficult to track who hasn't purchased. How
Correct.
do you track that?
So that is where our app logins, help really well, because there are consumers who log in, how many products they've browsed, but they've not purchased it. So people who don't log in, we usually treat, as if they were just there, they didn't want to purchase, they were window shoppers. But someone who is giving you their phone number, who is consenting you with their information, browsing the products and still not purchasing is something, we have. So those are some of the information we use. Even offline stores, we take phone numbers of the customers who enter the store and do not purchase. So those are some of the areas with which we try and reach out to. In fact, we try and organize group sessions, group discussions also with them and identify what we can do. So
it's an amazing insight, right? When I asked agility, typically we expect how fast as a company you respond. But I think he started with a North Star metric of NPS score. agility without direction is of no use, right? It's such an awakening point, right? For you are moving fast with customer at the center, a wonderful point.
So I think one is moving away from seasonal ranges to monthly ranges to be more agile, because you don't want to buy something for 6 months later where you're not sure if it'll work unless it's your bread and butter, which is your classic. Moving to those models, that is one that we have done. We no more do like a seasonal OTB, we do like a monthly OTB and see what's working. Now to conclude what's going to be in the next month OTB, that means I need to reanalyze what was selling, right? But at the same time, a lot of people keep playing the replenishment game and forget that they might lose out of the race. So re-understand, even if your ROS for a particular product is really high, but re-understand if the trend is there or not there. So re-looking at the data every month, number one, the data that I mentioned earlier as well. Number two, understanding at each product level, or if not product class level, to understand if impressions are decreasing, like you mentioned, drop-offs are there, impressions are increasing, conversions are reducing. So easiest way is for you to understand if the consideration of the product is where. Is 2.5, is 1.5, how is it, how has it been in the trajectory since the couple of months, and understand if it is increasing or decreasing and take the action accordingly. So I think that is definitely one that we do.
Set the context of what I say. I'll give you an example of how I used to work, or me or my team used to work, say 10 years back, and how we work now. Basically, to do a research or gather input on something which is critical for us to launch, for example, or that will help us decide whether to launch or not. We used to do an extensive research, traveling around the country, around the globe maybe, and then come up after a month and a half, come up with the final conclusion with the inputs gathered throughout the month or month and a half, and take a call. Today, I think a few months back, I needed some input on some product category, whether to get into it or not, in a particular potential white space. And I made a call to one of the employee of the tool which we work with, which provides us insight. And within 3 days' time, I got the input I needed. And we decided to go ahead with the plan of launch. So that's the kind of speed, agility, bias for action I'm talking about, which helps us decide whether to move forward on a direction or not. Progress, I'll say, rather than movement. Movement is a little abstract for me. So that's the kind of speed I'm talking about, Ganesh.
I think we're just running tight on time. We'll move straight to the questions. Who wants to go with the first question, please? Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, I think we have 2 questions, yeah.
Yeah, hi. My question is to Ganesh. You mentioned that...
Can you just speak?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is to Ganesh. You mentioned that there was a trend that you got 2.5%, but you're able to capitalize if you're early. Now the thing is, virality, I feel, is more of... it's like spur of the moment, or if you're good at marketing. So is that it, or is it more deeper?
I think it was Anshika's, right?
Your question was basically how did we do the 5x?
Yeah.
Okay. Marketing, I would say, see, if there's a demand, people are looking for that product. Even if you don't go crazy on marketing, you can up your SEO game. Right? So always stay relevant on SEO. As soon as you understand a trend, start working on that aspect while you parallelly work on the product and launch that. So I think it's very organic demand. You don't have to create demand by doing extensive marketing. You will get the revenue just because there's a demand, and when you get to the demand right early in the stage when you're a trendsetter, at that point in time, you won't have a lot of competitors, and there's a higher possibility for you to have more acquisition, and then it's your game how you can retain them with in future further trends. So I think being in the game at the right time initially is most important.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go with the second question. Yeah.
Hi. So do you guys analyze global data for Indian products, or it's just Indian data and then make product for India?
The question is, do you analyze just Indian data or global data?
Like, do we have to study the European market, mein kya chal raha hai, or maybe like
Specifically speaking for our set of brands, in fact, 100% we try and study global data more than Indian data, purely when it comes to trends, fashion trends. When it comes to other things like colors, fits and everything, of course, we consume both European and Indian data because all of these sometimes are very, very different. But purely in terms of what's common across the globe, what's happening across the globe in terms of trends, 100% we definitely keep track on what's happening and we consume that a lot.
Thank you.
I actually have a little difference of opinion here. I feel there was a study done lately and understood that Indians are actually defining the fashion in US now. One, because of the population, and two, because we're very stubborn in terms of what we want. Right? So while it's always the best to go ahead and understand what's happening in the world in terms of what new trends are coming in, but you also need to understand how fast that fashion comes in. If it's Korea, let's say it might come in a month or two. If it's US, might take 6 months, so on and so forth. Understand that as well. Also, like I initially started, understand your consumer. If your consumer is more impacted by, let's say, K-pop, then you don't need to really go to Europe. Your main focus area is Korea. If they are more, let's say, more premium range and they are more towards Hollywood and they have aspirations to go to US, maybe take aspiration from there. So it really depends on your business case and your business need.
Wonderful. I think this is a very interesting problem to be quantified by data, which is what influences fashion for which country, for which brand, and by when. It's actually a complex problem, right? Is Japan relevant for me, for my brand in India, and by when? If you have to answer these questions, relatively, it's, I would say that relatively unsolved problem, a lot of judgment going there. As you can see here, I just want to conclude, I think we're running tight on time. You can see here there is absolutely no conflict, at least on this panel, between human and data. It seems a collaboration, looks like a partnership. Nobody is feeling otherwise. Data and AI seems to be helping me. And wherever it helps us take the right decisions of what will not change in the future is definitely a formula for keeping you ahead and win you more customers. Thank you very much for all the panelists here.